gentlemen, and tarnished of all ages, for a game as big as Elden Ring and an expansion as large as Shadow of the Erdtree, the comparative amount of bugs or glitches in the game are actually relatively minimal. That said, the vast majority of them that I've experienced myself over the years honestly just result in fun, and there was one of these in the base game that made offhand specific weapons weirdly get the buff from any main hand weapon buffs that you did have, and you could do this to make something like the Dragon Fist from Godric apply bloodflame or deathblight if you wanted to, which was honestly just silly as hell, but I absolutely loved this. And then it was, of course, eventually patched because it wasn't intended. But that bug is actually back now in a new form. Specifically, it is back with a brand new item, a new weapon? Well, sort of. Specifically, the smithscript shield. This is one of the new smithscript equipment items that has a throwing component to it that then just reforms in your hands afterwards. Generally, these across the board are incredibly cool, but have limited functionality as the throwing attacks themselves seem to have been nerfed quite hard since any pre-release footage that we saw. The exception to this, though, weirdly, is this shield. Not only was it not really nerfed all that much because it wasn't expected to be powerful, so much as just giving you a ranged attack from a shield, but also this bug on top of it has proven quite massive. So let's talk about the shield, where to get it, and then how to min-max around it in the expected confines of the game. Then we'll of course talk about the myriad of ways that this bug affects the shield to the point of making it just entirely buildable around as your main weapon if you want to. Just have a funny throwing shield built that is just way too strong for what it is. Literally not working as intended. First up then, the shield itself comes from Telu's Ruined Forge. This is just a short horse ride directly up a visible dirt path on the ground from the ancient ruins base, Site of Grace, in the lower section of the Shadow Altus region. It's not really complex to get here at all, but for full clarity's sake, inside of the dungeon itself, I will just show you the direct path to actually get to the shield. Once you have that, then let's talk about how it properly functions. This is expected to be wielded in your offhand, of course, and so the throwing attack itself, rather than being your strong attack, like it is with most smithscript weapons, is actually a unique weapon skill, Discus Hurl. This takes priority over main hand weapon skills due to being a shield. As well, the damage of the actual throwing attack seems to scale with the weapon's attack rating, meaning weapon upgrades matter and so do your stats, matching the base scaling of the shield itself. There's a number of ways that you can boost this damage further, things like the Shard of Alexander talisman affect it due to it being a weapon skill, and the new smithscript talisman also affects it because it does count as a throwing attack, and even just using it like this is definitely alright, but I wouldn't consider it a main build weapon like this by any means. Mechanically, as you'll see when you use it, the shield hits twice per throw, once when it's going through the initial throw, and then it pauses in the air for a moment spinning before flying onwards again for a second hit. That second hit is where most of the damage comes from. It has great tracking, and it has much longer range than the first hit, but you can get both hits to hit the enemy if you actually use the attack while you are quite close to them. The real secret sauce then comes when you start applying buffs to a main hand weapon. In most of all these clips, you will see me using just a basic dagger in my main hand, applying a buff to the dagger, and then the shield will inherit these weapon buffs and apply all of their effects with the throw itself. The star of the show you've probably recognized from the intro, but it is the return of a secondary classic bug, which is Royal Knight's Resolve as a weapon skill. This skill, when used, gives you an 80% damage boost to your next weapon attack. That disappears if not used after 10 seconds. This used to have a bug with it that would make it boost things like spells when cast from a catalyst from your offhand, and when doing so, it didn't consume the effect because the effect is only consumed when you do an attack with the weapon that it is on. So instead of a single 80% boosted hit, you got like 10 seconds of 80% damage boost every time that you use the weapon skill, which was just absolutely busted and nuts while it was a thing. This was of course eventually patched, but it is rearing its head again specifically right here because this works exactly the same way with the shield's unique skill. If you apply Royal Knight's Resolve to your main hand weapon while you are two-handed one-handing it, then you choose to one-hand it with the shield. You can then discus throw for the full duration of Royal Knight's Resolve being on the dagger, with every throw of your shield getting the full absolutely busted bonus, not consuming the buff, turning an otherwise just fun secondary offhand shield into being an actual implement of goddamn war. And well, if you want to just maximize the hell out of it, there's a ton that you can actually do based around that itself, but there is a lot more fun that you can actually be having here instead of just being overpowered, and I want to emphasize that at the end of the day, when it happens to an otherwise just silly weapon like this, a bug of this caliber is just more about trying to get fun out of it than anything else. With that said, using this bug, you can apply any and all weapon buffs to the build. This includes things like weapon greases applied to your shield, including things like Scarlet Rot, which you can put with a grease onto your dagger, and then it can be applied in only a couple of shield throws quite easily as an easy way of applying the debuff. It works with any incantation or spell that applies bonus damage or effects to your weapon as well, such as Poison Weapon for poison application, Shared Order for putting holy damage on the throw, Bloodflame Blade for applying bloodflame to the throw, making it give actually reasonably fast bleed buildup, Black Flame Blade applying a % health drain debuff with every throw, which would be really solid if, you know, the effect itself lasted for more than a few seconds, and of course the magic weapon buffs too. Past that, it also applies to any Ashes of War with a similar effect, leaving a lasting buff on your weapon. Things like Chilling Mist gives the shield throw a frostbite buildup, so you can apply frostbite with it. The Death Shodel weapon skill gives the weapon throw Deathblight, which you might think is terrifying as hell, but the amount of Deathblight buildup is actually minor enough that the shield itself would kill you before it applies anyways, really. Or one of the most impressive combinations is things like the new Flame Skewer and Flame Spear Messmer Flame Ashes of War, which apply just a really hefty fire buff to the throw as well, just increasing its damage a ton with specifically fire weak enemies. It's worth mentioning for whatever reason, I noticed that against bigger targets as well, if I had either Bloodflame Blade or one of the Messmer Flame buffs applied, the shield would actually gain like bonus mini damage ticks during its throw animation if it was connecting with an enemy in the midpoint where it just sort of spins before going for the second hit, which actually makes it even more strange of an interaction and honestly just shows that this shield is just absolutely broken right now in the most literal of ways. It just isn't functioning correctly. But hey, at least it is broken in a fun way with a lot of variety to actually mess around with, and with the throwing weapons themselves being unfortunately a little bit undertuned probably. If there was pretty much one weapon that I could choose for this to happen to, it would just be a fun little throwing shield like this. That just about does it for today then, everyone. Just a sort of PSA saying, hey, this shield is bugged. It probably won't last for very long, but it is definitely a very fun bug if you want to mess around with it while it's here, and also the various ways it interacts with weapon buffs being applied to your main hand. Quite simply, all you have to do is just walk around with a plain little dagger or something like that, and aside from using the existence of that to buff the shield is absolutely the star of the show, and I love shield focused setups, at least personally. I hope you've enjoyed this video then, and hopefully you enjoyed messing around with this too while it's around. Like if you liked the video, subscribe to the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.